Hi everybody, we're looking at an interesting problem that could be used as an exploratory exercise for 5th grade and on up, and consistent with the Common Core doing mathematical investigations, exploring below the surface and applying our knowledge. And it's also a good way of making sense out of fractions, developing fraction sense. This is a well-known problem called unit fractions, based on the Egyptian method that has been known for over 2,000 years, found originally on the Rind papyrus, and has been studied extensively ever since. And it's a fun exercise. We're working with what is called unit fractions which have a numerator of 1. So for example, 5/6 can be written as 1/2 plus 1/3. We can ask the students to verify this with a common denominator. 1/2 is 3/6, 1/3 2/6. We can also write 5/6 as a sum of 3 unit fractions. Again, unit fractions meaning numerators of 1. 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/12, you can verify that. So there's more than one way to express a given fraction as a sum of different unit fractions. And that's important because that's part of this process. Now, how does one go about decomposing or breaking a fraction into unit fractions? Guess and test? Certainly we can have students do that. Starting with 1/2, does that make sense? In both cases, 1/2 is less than 5/6, so it seems reasonable to start with that. And in fact, 1/2 is the biggest unit fraction, less than 5/6. The largest unit fraction. Less than 5/6. And then we move on from there. Now there is an algorithm for this, a step-by-step procedure, which is known as the greedy algorithm. I'm not going to go into details with that. We're just going to demonstrate this with another question. In this case, we can ask our students to write 9/10 as a sum of 3 different unit fractions. And let's begin. The largest unit fraction less than 9/10 is 1/2. Let's see what's left over. To find what we need to add on to 1/2 to get 9/10, we subtract. 9/10 minus 1/2. We're doing this work on the side over here. Common denominator 10. 1/2 is 5/10, and the difference is 4/10, which I reduced to 2/5. Are we done? Well, I did ask for 3 different fractions, and furthermore, 2/5 is not a unit fraction because it has a numerator of 2. So we're going to repeat the procedure. We're going to break 2/5 down. This time, we're not going to start with 1/2. That doesn't make sense, since 1/2 is more than 2/5. We can verify that with a common denominator of 10. We can also convert to decimals. We can also ask students to think about why 1/2, 1 part out of 2, is greater than 2 parts out of 5. So let me get rid of the 1/2. Let's go to 1/3. That would be the next larger unit fraction after 1/2. We go to a denominator of 3. Let's see what we need to add on. This time we'll do some subtraction. Go off to the side. 2/5 minus 1/3. Common denominator 15. So that's 6/15 minus 5/15, which is 1/15. And that's what we'll put up here, 1/15. So now we know that 9/10 is equal to 1/2. It's our first unit fraction, plus 1/3 plus 1/15. Are we done? Well, we have written it as a sum. 3 different unit fractions. We could certainly ask students if there's another way to do this, but we're not going to go further with that right now. This method that we've described can be applied to other fractions, but we really haven't spelled out a very specific procedure. We started with 1/2 because 1/2 was the largest unit fraction less than 9/10. We subtracted to see what was left over, and we obtained 2/5. 2/5 is not a unit fraction, so we needed to continue the method, which we did here. We then went to the next unit fraction. We couldn't use 1/2 again for 2 reasons. First, 1/2 is bigger than 2/5. Secondly, we want to use different unit fractions. And then we subtracted to see what was left over. And in this case, what was left over after we got a common denominator was itself a unit fraction. So we were done. We could also go to an amazing app, which I'm sure most of you have worked with, called Wolfram Alpha. Let's do that. Going to go to Wolfram Alpha, and there it is. You can just type in Egyptian fraction into the search engine, and then 9/10. Press equals or whatever button is needed to go and have it perform the procedure, and this is what it produces. Egyptian fraction 9/10, and here's the result. 1/2 plus 1/3 plus 1/15. Wolfram Alpha is an app you can purchase. I believe it's very inexpensive for Android or for iPhones or iPads or for your computer. Check that out. And that's it for today.